Next session, which links importantly with the themes that we've been talking about, and particularly with this theme of integration. You have potentially a powerhouse of a region here in terms of a population, in terms of entrepreneurialism, in terms of size and strategic position, but there's a great deal of disconnection in the region between the countries physically and politically too. So the next session we're going to be looking at advancing sustainability, but we're going to be looking specifically at the areas of infrastructure, energy and financing. So a fascinating topic area, and we're going to be joined by the perfect group of people to help us work our way through these themes. So let me invite up to the stage our next panel. And first of all, we have Adam Schluessler, who is the head of the office of Romeo Franz, who's a member of the European Parliament and chair of the delegation for relations with Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo at the European Parliament. You're very welcome. Please join me. Liburn Aliu, who is the Minister of Environment, Spatial Planning and Infrastructure here in Kosovo. Minister, you're welcome too. Artane Rizvanolli, who is the Minister of Economy for Kosovo. I know you will forgive me for mangling the names. This is the best I can do. And Massimiliano Paolucci, who is the Country Manager for Kosovo North Macedonia at the World Bank. And Sergiy Maslichenko, who is the Regional Head of Kosovo at the EBRD. And Branko Čevriz, who is the Loan Officer and Portfolio Manager for Western Balkans and Turkey at the EIB. And finally, Stella Hagen, who is the Project Director for Trains and Trams at the YES EU Group. Welcome. We have a very large panel, a lot of people, but a fabulous, diverse selection of expertise, so I'm very much looking forward to it. To set the stage for us, I'm going to hand straight across to Adam Schluessler, who can tell us about the European Parliament's view on all of this. Adam, please, your introductory words. Thank you.
Yes. So maybe some of my words that I will have will sound a little bit harsh, so that's why I want to say at the beginning where a great majority of people in the European Parliament are standing. And this is also what was already mentioned. The path from Kosovo to the European Union is a path that we as a parliament also want. And this is something that I wanted to make clear. Now, regarding energy, transitioning is difficult for every country. The situation is following. So, in a significant move, the Kosovo Parliament has approved a new energy strategy that extends to 2031. The strategy is a crucial step in defining Kosovo's energy plans and vision for the future. And it outlines also the importance of renewable energy. What is a vision for Kosovo? And it is a change that is possible, especially if we focus on solar and wind energy, where we will also come later. But the strategy has also some difficulties and some issues regarding the current energy that we have and how realistic it is to go out of the current energy, and especially having in mind that By 2026, the carbon border adjustment mechanism in the power sector will be also in place. So Kosovo has a long way to go. Progress in aligning with EU on industrial pollution in this context, I wanted to highlight, and risk management has also been limited. Although the Assembly adopted the law on integrated prevention and control of pollution in March 23, the implementation of legislation on pollution prevention, control and accountability remains slow. And this is something, if we are looking at the energy sector, is very important to keep in mind. I just wanted to highlight one thing, because Romeo Franz is not only the chair of the delegation of the European Parliament for Kosovo and Bosnia and Herzegovina, but he's also the first Sinto in the European Parliament. And we mentioned before the conditionality that we are having. And I just wanted to highlight the incident, the poisoning incident in North Kosovo, where the role of the United Nations was more than bad. But nevertheless, it is important to mention it because especially minorities were facing this. This is now not in the energy sector, but I just wanted to highlight the conditionality, especially regarding also minorities in pollution. And Kosovo has made limited progress in aligning water legislation in the EU sectors. This is also an important point, also important for the energy sector we are talking about. And now I wanted to highlight something. The first step towards achieving goals towards a sustainable energy future is a functioning public administration. And there it is very important that the funds that will come in, that we have the structure here in place. So this is not a small thing, but this is crucial, and I just wanted to highlight it. Kosovo has some level of preparation, but not made a real progress regarding public administration reform and the implementation legislative framework. Public administration reform across line ministries is still ineffective. And I'm looking at the time. Nevertheless, the future is hopeful. We talked about the action plan. We will hear more from the European Investment Bank as well, with the renewable project that is funded by the European Investment Bank with a couple of millions, and also with the KfW bank. And this can be a milestone, a lighthouse project for the entering a vision of renewable energy in Kosovo. The way is not easy, but we are hopeful, and yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. Switch my microphone on. Thank you very much for that, and thank you for being frank. I think it's the best strategy, particularly at the start of a panel. It gives everybody an opportunity to respond, and to respond in the context of what you've said. So let's move along to our ministers. And first of all, Liburn Aliu, Minister of Environment, Spatial Planning and Infrastructure for Kosovo. Your thoughts, please.
Thank you. It's a pleasure at first to be here on this panel and discuss about sustainability. And usually when we speak about sustainability, the first thing that we have in mind is a kind of...
You may have to lean a little closer to your microphone just to make sure everybody can hear you.
So, speaking about sustainability, the first thing that comes in your mind is doing kind of step back, a kind of zoom out and look at the differences and try to find the links, try to find the complementarities, and therefore these links mainly bring us to infrastructure. So planning and connecting different resources and diversities between the region, and this means going beyond on the regional level, even within the country, or on general on the region of Western Balkan countries. Kosovo is a place that its entire energy is produced by coal. This is going to be a topic of the next speaker, my Minister Artane Rizvanolli, but I'm going to speak about the connectivity and transportation as a part of this sustainable development that we have put it on our goal on our development and economy. So Kosovo actually is in the center of Balkans, but when we look better at the corridors, it is in a way quite have been set it out. And therefore, our goals has been to bring this connectivity, to make links between corridors within the Balkans, and therefore create potentials for equal conditions for the countries to develop. In this aspect, we have been doing a lot of steps on the, like a multimodal transport strategy and ITS strategy in order to make sustainable this existing transport that we have. But on the other hand, we have been doing a lot on infrastructure projects that are making Kosovo more closer to European corridors. The two highways that already we have, Ibrahim Rugova and Orban Jaferi, are connecting us to the blue Ion Adriatic corridor in one hand and connecting us to Port of Durrës, and Corridor 8 and 10 to Skopje. Therefore, we are continuing with other projects that will connect us to Corridor 10. What is another important project that recently we have started with the Republic of Albania is the railway connectivity line that will connect Durrës and Pristina, and this means to connect Ion Adriatic corridor, two ports, quite important ports of Adriatic, like it is Bar in Montenegro and Durrës, to be connected among themselves with a project with EU that will connect them on the Vor-Honey-Hoted project, and this line will bring goods and passenger transport from these two ports to Pristina, and then to Skop, to Sofia, Varna, and north through Mitrovica, Leshak, to the Corridor 10 in Salzburg and Europe. Actually, doing these connectivity projects, this will make possible that entire ITS strategy to bring sustainability and make more sustainable the railway transport that for this next decade is going to be the main focus of our government. Until now, the focus was mainly only on highways. Actually, this will bring a shortcuts, especially for Montenegrin port of Bar, that will very easily reach Varna port or Sofia through Pristina, and this will make actually a good opportunity for the entire region to have a better integration among communities and for different businesses. Pristina, region of Pristina, as a potential hub within the region will bring actually a better conditions even for a better transition for the energy, because this area is actually at the now areas where we are exploiting the coal. If we are planning to stop exploitation of the coal by 2050, then there should be something else there in that area, and that area is exactly on the crossroad in the Balkan, and that will make the potential hub and area for the economical growth and development for the entire region. This will actually then bring down boundaries, and will make a better connectivity from all ports, especially on the time when we have been facing the situation in Ukraine and the necessity of the transportation, of sustainable transportation that we have been facing with these difficulties. On the other hand, yes, between Pristina and Durrës, there won't be any Chinese influence, so I think this will be another good element of this entire thing. So, thank you. We might continue further on other details.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's move along to the Minister of the Economy for Kosovo, Artane Rizvanolli. Your thoughts, please.
Thank you very much. Great pleasure to be here today. Also, opportunity to reflect a bit on the past 2 years. 2 years ago, in this very forum, we were sitting here and talking about how to navigate economic vulnerabilities at a time of geopolitical instability. 2 years later, I wish that I could say that the situation is better in some sense. But on the other hand, I think that there are accomplishments both in Kosovo and in Europe that we can be proud of how we managed these last 2 years. So on the one hand, while the world is more fragmented geopolitically and economically, we have overall navigated successfully the last 2 years, I would say. At that time, the main issue was dealing with the following winter, reducing demand and reducing dependency on Russian gas and oil for Europe particularly. This has been successfully done, I would say, due to unusually swift policies by the EU, which we are all thankful for, but also other factors. On the other hand, 2 years later, there are also concerns, particularly with regard to competitiveness of green technologies. We are now at a time when production of solar panels is pretty much finished in Europe. Now batteries and EVs from China are flooding the market, most likely pure dumping. And we're at a time when also wind turbines from China are seriously threatening competitiveness of European but also US manufacturers. Now, while in the US we have a clear industrial policy emerging for a while now to deal with this, in Europe, unfortunately, we don't see the same kind of agility, and we hope that for the sake of all of us, this will change soon. For Kosovo, I would say that over the last 2 years, we've had a lot of development and a lot of achievements that we can be proud of. If I go back to the previous conference here, one of the key issues was reducing demand, particularly by households. I'm happy to say that that year already by awareness campaigns, but also by subsidizing efficient appliances, we managed to stabilize demand from households, which used to be growing at a rate of up to 2 digits annually before that. 2 years ago, I was sitting here sharing general policy directions that were very ambitious. Since then, with regard to renewables and energy efficiency, particularly as the 2 areas of investment which we saw from the beginning as no-regret investments. 2 years later, I'm happy to say that these policy directions are now clearly set in the strategy, which was approved by Parliament last year, but also we have made important steps in implementing the strategy and making this a strategy which is an ambitious one. I truly believe also one that is implementable and that one that we are in right direction to achieving. This 2 weeks ago, we concluded a successful, more than successful, first solar auction for a 100 megawatt solar plant. We are preparing now the first wind auction, but also in the meantime, we have prepared a pipeline of future wind auctions that will take place in publicly owned land. So with this, we are securing a pipeline of projects which in wind, which tends to be more complex and riskier, and therefore more government involvement is needed. But also, of course, it takes a lot more time in planning and constructing, and therefore now is the right time to put all our efforts on developing and preparing new wind capacities. At the same time, we have progressed well in 3 very important projects. One 100 megawatt plant at KEK, our publicly owned company, which currently produces 100% from coal, and a 50 megawatt thermal district heating plant in Pristina, which will add to the capacity, but also increase the efficiency of current district heating system. And the 170 megawatt battery storage project for secondary and tertiary reserves. The tenders for all 3 EPC contracts will be coming out later this year or early next year, and this means that we are well on track with regard to renewable energy. With regard to energy efficiency, we've had record investment in efficiency appliances, insulation of homes in public buildings, all of these in record levels, and this will continue to do so year after year over the next years.
Thank you, and spot on time as well. Excellent. Let's move along to Massimiliano Paolucci from the World Bank. Your thoughts, please.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be such a distinguished panel. A lot of the things that have been discussed today are part of what I'm going to say, but I just want to make one point, and building on what Minister Rizvanolli was saying. She was focusing on the last 2 years, but if we look at the progress that the country has made since the 1990s, it is impressive. We have a country that was a low-income country, and it's now an upper middle income country with its own challenges. But to achieve such a progress in a relatively short period of time, it speaks actually to the dynamism of the country and the dynamism of the economy. Now, the past years have seen, as we all know, a multiplication of crises. The region has withstood these crises in different ways. But what we see is that from 2023, where growth has lagged behind, if you wish, even if at 2.6%, it wasn't an impressive growth, we are now seeing an increase in prospects leading to 3.2% at the end of 2024, and we estimate that growth will reach 3.8% in 2026. Is this enough for the region? No. It is not enough because, as we heard before, it will take a long time for the region to bridge the gap between, with the EU in terms of per capita income. So depending on the country, we're talking about decades, 2 decades, 3 decades, but it's a long time. And that presuming that countries will continue growing at these percentages. So what would it take for this gap to be actually closed earlier? It would take these countries to grow more faster, to be more productive. We heard it before, to create more jobs, better value jobs and better paid jobs. So, and that, if we unpack this concept, means two things. More regional integration, we've heard about it time and again today, and structural reforms. Let me focus on two aspects of regional integration that are important and also highlight what we've been doing in the region. First is trade and transport facilitation. Regional integration is important because countries, as we know, will be able to access bigger markets. They will have stronger bargaining power. But trade and transport facilitation is the starting point of all this. We calculated that simply by reducing the transit time at the borders, the equivalent, by 2 hours, we will have the same effect of reducing tariffs by 2%, or, said in other words, an increase of GDP that averages between 1.5 and 3%. That's huge. What would it take there? Investments in infrastructure to facilitate border crossing, intelligent transport system, and cutting of red tape at the border. Another dimension of regional integration, we heard it also before, is regional payment systems. That is essential. It has to go, however, and all the countries have been working on this also in the context of the Berlin process, and we are supporting that process. But that will have to go together with a deepening of financial and capital markets. Kosovo, until very recently, did not have access to international markets, as we know. The investment rating came very recently. So that is important, but that has to go in tandem with a deepening of the domestic capital market, where financial intermediation is still very shallow and is dominated by the banking sector only. Another dimension that I wanted to discuss, and we alluded to that, is energy, the energy sector. When we talk about energy sector, yes, the transition to renewables is important, but we also have regional integration. And for countries with a small markets, like the ones in the Western Balkans, regional integration is a key. Kosovo has made progress with that, with Albania. It could be, the progress could be even faster and bigger with the northern neighbor of Serbia. We know the constraints there, but regional integration is part of the decarbonization story of this country. Let me just mention two other things. Regional integration, infrastructure development is all important issues, but without investing in people, we will not go very far. Kosovo's human capital development is 0.57, which means that a child born today will be 50% productive at the age of 18, simply because the quality of education and health is not where it should be. Investing in people is the best investment that a country can make. And finally, digitalization. Kosovo is the only country in the region and one of the few countries in the world, in Europe, that has achieved 100% coverage of the digital broadband. This is an important achievement. Not enough, though. Now we need to go to the next step, which is digitalization of services, digitalization of financial services, digitalization of education. The country can do it. The young population, it has a young population that can actually reap the benefit of digitalization and move the needle forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for those words. Let's move along to Sergiy Maslichenko from the EBRD. You're the head of the regional head for Kosovo. Your thoughts, please, on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. A lot has been said. I will share a perspective from the EBRD point of view. I just wanted to start with a probably personal note. I'm Ukrainian. I came from Ukraine with my family 15 months ago to Kosovo to lead EBRD operations, and I was really impressed by the country and by huge opportunities available in the country for infrastructure, for green energy. Before, I was leading green energy or green agenda in EBRD for Eastern Europe, but was based in Kiev. So this is a familiar topic, and I think Kosovo really has a bright future, and this is what EBRD is trying to help. And focusing on this topic of this discussion, I would like to say that infrastructure is an enabler. It's enabling infrastructure to do more business, to attract more investments, to drive economic growth, to increase GDP growth, and to create opportunities for local companies, for SMEs, and so on. I think this investment in infrastructure with development partners should be prioritized by the government. I think as EBRD, we are the largest investor among international financial institutions in the public infrastructure. We do a lot. We help the government. We work on several projects. But I believe we can do much more, much more. Just to give you an example, for example, nowadays we have 1-2 projects, 20 million wastewater treatment plants. At the same time in Bosnia and Herzegovina and North Macedonia, we have 200 million projects in infrastructure. I think this we can do more here, and EBRD, we have a good office, 20 people with a huge experience in the region, and with implementation support, I think we can help more to not only to get money, but to implement the project, which is an issue in all the region in terms of capacity, how you manage the project, and so on. Another point I would like to make is POE, public-owned enterprises. It was mentioned before. I think it represents a huge potential also for investments. I mean, reforming POEs, making them commercially viable, or putting some of them on for privatization will create a lot of opportunities, I think, for local companies, for foreign investors, and will bring more investments in this respect. So we as EBRD work with several, and I think the government can also speed up the process of reforms and be open to attract foreign investors in this particular sector. And the last point I would like to make, of course, renewable energy was heavily discussed today. So far, you probably know EBRD has financed 2 wind farms. This is the only large-scale renewable energy, I believe, energy assets in the country since Kosovo B 1980s, I believe. But that was done by private sector. That was done on that time on the simple framework for feed-in tariff. But I think EBRD was also instrumental to help to create this framework and also to draft a power purchase agreement. And I wanted to say that a trust to the private sector, I think, is very important here, because private sector can deliver many more projects. We already saw many potential developers. So we are talking about 100 megawatt, 150 megawatt projects. But for the last year, I saw like 10 different companies with a total volume of 1,000 megawatts, so 10 times more. And they're ready, some of them already developing the projects, but through private channels, through so-called corporate power purchase agreement. And they would like to see also some improvements in regulation. I mean, just passing the feedback from them that still the process of getting permits, construction permit, etc., is very bureaucratic, is very difficult, and they can build much more and much faster, and they're flexible to make Kosovo green. And I think this should be prioritized by the government. And I believe energy strategy is very ambitious and very good, but we believe that private sector is the key to deliver the ambitious energy target and through private sector. At the same time, in the EBRD, we work a lot with both private sector and public sector, actually, to give you some flavor. Around 80% of our projects in the private sector, and because Kosovo is dominated by small and medium enterprises, we invest a lot through commercial banks. You know, I am happy to see here our friends and partners from BPB, from ProCredit, and other banks. We channel a lot of money with EU funds together, so we blend in one product and also provide technical assistance, consultants, to help prepare these projects. And even through these commercial bonds, we managed to finance 50 megawatt of solar roof PV projects. We've managed to finance through credit lines to residential buildings, to population, also more than 600 projects. So the sector, private sector, is really developing, and there are good achievements to see. And my advice, again, to the government to trust and let them do the work, and they will install many more projects, and which is important for the country because it's decentralized energy. They will be located in many places. It's not just one place. And I think with a good regulatory environment, with a good prioritization, we can achieve more together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Let's move straight along to Branko Čevriz, Loan Officer, Portfolio Manager at the Western Balkans and Turkey for the EIB. Do forgive my pronunciation of your name. I'm sure I got it wrong. Feel free to correct me.
Very good. Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure really to be here, such an esteemed panel and distinguished guest. A lot has been said. I think I was asked by the organizer maybe to illuminate a bit more on the role of the EIB in the development of infrastructure projects. I mean, with that, I can refer most certainly to some of the previous presentations in the previous panel, and also introductory remark by the organizers, posing a question whether the geopolitics have an impact on the development of projects and particularly economies of Western Balkans. I think we concluded definitely the answer to that is yes. So I believe that what is the role here by the EIB, I think also other respective financial organizations, is that it basically operates in a contracyclical way when it comes to infrastructure projects. So in these uncertain times when there's a lot of uncertainty in relation to inflation, to costs, capex is going, of infrastructure projects is going significantly up. The cost of funding is going up. Basically, it's a prominent role of all the IFIs to even scale up its financial and technical support, because everybody that's involved in the development of infrastructure project knows that any big project which stands still or is in an impasse situation for several months has a huge adverse implications. So how does the EIB basically target this particular sector? Of course, by virtue of concessional financing under preferential terms, and with the long maturities of its loans that meet the economic life or even exceed the economic life of the projects. And more importantly, we are blending our loans with the grants that are provided also by the European Commission and mostly channeled through the Western Balkans investment framework. I think the colleague from the previous panel, presented, and we applaud the expedite measure by the Commission to adopt the new reform and growth facility, which will utilize around additional 3 billion of funds that will be made available to the Western Balkans and also Kosovo for grant financing of the infrastructure projects. And the third, I think, very important role of EIB is basically the technical assistance that it brings to the promoters and the countries, both in terms of project preparation and project implementation. I think that is very important because, as we know, not like ordinary commercial banks, the IFIs have also sector engineers, economists that help to prepare projects and make sure that projects are not only technically and economically viable, but also that they meet the highest social and environmental standards, and that they, of course, are procured in accordance with the best practices. Here, I would like to also highlight that the EIB is also partnering with the European Commission in a so-called JASPERS advisory service, which provides also to Kosovo and other Western Balkan countries the option for support in the preparation of strategies and programs in different sectors, including infrastructure, and also preparing the projects and in respect to capacity building. There was something said about capacities of public administration and also in the previous iterations. Maybe just to also present briefly let's say, the key intervention areas. I think definitely, let's say, the most important one recognized by the EU and the countries, including Kosovo, is of course sustainable transport, investments in transport. As already mentioned by the minister, the bank also supports the Kosovo's links to TNT core and pan-European networks. In this regard, there were already some investments made in the past in the road sector, definitely shifting the transport to sustainable to sustainable transport such as railways. The bank here provided also a facility for the rehabilitation of Route 10, which goes through entire Kosovo. I believe it's 150 kilometers. And also in the future, the bank is willing to support also intermodal transport solutions, including the urban transport development and inland waterway transport. I think the second sector, which is some kind now being highlighted, is of course the energy sector. I think here we see DAB, same as other partners. I think there are key investments in basically four intervention areas. One is increasing the renewable energy capacity of the country, which will allow it to phase out from coal dependency. One of the projects we're very proud of, we're working together with KfW, was already mentioned today, is the solar power plant, which is being developed in the outskirts of Pristina, where also a grant funding was provided by the European Commission. We're also developing several wind farms across the Western Balkans, most notably in Bosnia. Second area, very important now, I think it also recognized within the Reform and Growth Facility by the Commission, is strengthening of the distribution grids to be able to sustain all this additional capacity, and also rehabilitating and developing new transmission lines, which will allow the integration of regional electricity markets. Conscious of time, maybe the third and very important intervention that we would like to work on is also the just transition in the energy sector. So these are the comprehensive projects which target the coal regions and do not support only the repurposing of the land and gradual closure of the mines, but also deal with the most important aspect, that is dealing with the social economic challenges of such just transition, making sure nobody's left behind. So dealing with the coal mines, with the coal workers and the communities, supporting retraining, reskilling, etc. So this is the project we're developing in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and hopefully we can also replicate in other countries, including Kosovo. Apologies for being a bit over my time, and thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, well, let's move along to our final panelist for this session, Stella Hagen, who is the project director of Trains and Trams, the YES EU group. You can keep us on the rails and take us to a happy terminus. Yeah, I believe you have a PowerPoint, is that correct?
Yes, I had some few slides I had to show you. Yeah,
excellent.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, distinguished and honored guests, it's a really honor for me to be here to speak with you on how battery-operated trains can be an important part of the investments in future e-mobility. The next one, please. I will have a short introduction of YES EU and of me, and then I will tell you about some possibilities what battery trains can do within investments here in Kosovo and other countries in the area. Next, please. YES EU is a leading provider within e-mobility solutions. We have kept on for more than 50 years within electric buses. We have started up in Iceland and the northern part of Europe. And I am from Norway, and as you maybe know, 95% of all cars sold in Norway are fully electric. And more than 50%, thank you, more than 50% of all cars on the road are fully electric. So we are a pioneer within electric vehicles and electric buses. And I think Kosovo can be the same within battery and energy saving systems, maybe. And we hope so. And also within batteries and trains. So this is just a short introduction of me. I worked several years in KPMG within strategy and within transport and public transport and infrastructure investments. Also worked for the national government, and more than 25 years as a politician, and doing a lot with the incentives and what have impact and what does not when you're doing investments in e-mobility solutions. And also 17 years or 16 years in the army. So that's also an important role when we say about the data security within these systems. Yes, that's my background as well. As you can see, it's a lot of military introduction here. Well, some of you are politicians, and you maybe know that you have signed an agreement, the Paris Agreement. This is the symbol of the Paris Agreement. And a lot of politicians, they are struggling to deliver the results. How can we fulfill the goals that are set up in the Paris Agreement? And if you know, a lot of lines, railway lines around Europe, they are not electrified. They are operated by battery trains. And what's a huge cost for every government is to electrify those lines. They are very often in rural areas with a low density of people and also with low traffic. So it's a high cost to invest to electrify those lines. Or also if you're constructing new lines, you will see that it's a huge part of the investment is to electrify the lines with sticks, cables, and everything you need to operate the electric train. I will not go into detail of the project that we are working on, but just to show you some figures, because the government of Norway has 3 lines that they have calculated on what the cost will be. This is existing lines. They have been there for more than 100 years, but this is existing lines operated by diesel trains. What will it cost to electrify them? And for those 3 lines, they have now 2 billion euros. 2 billion euros it will cost to electrify these existing lines. And that's of course, even for Norway, and a very high cost to do so. And they postponed it every year. So then we say the solution is just to replace the diesel trains with battery trains. That's the solution. You don't have to use $2 billion to invest in these lines, to electrify them. Use battery trains. It's totally zero emission. It's much more sustainable than the trains that's operating there today. And this is also a project that I want to tell you about. This is a project in Albania, and it's also connected to Pristina, where we are now, of course. This is a line under construction from the city of Tirana to the airport and to the coast city Durrës, at the coastline on Albania, and also connected to Pristina. And we are telling that we are finding out that more normal you will save 40% of the cost when you invest in a line which is electrified. So if we can go to the government and say to them, if you construct this line, but you're using battery trains instead of electrified trains, then you can save 40% of the costs that you can use on other things to get also sustainable solutions. We think that's a very huge option, and if we will invest in this line, we can of course also do the service for batteries and the service for trains. We can do it here in Kosovo. We can assemble the batteries and have service on the batteries on these trains here in Kosovo or in the area. So this is a huge possibility for the governments in all Europe to much more quick replace old-fashioned trains, diesel trains, with new and bright technology like battery trains. And that is about 20,000 passengers going from this airport every day. So think about what kind of impact it will have if you replace the 20,000 people going there today with a car, and they can go with a battery train instead. All the tourists is going from Tirana airport to the coast. That will be a huge impact on the emission and with much more sustainable solutions. And I also mentioned for the short this is the maintenance machines and the terminal machines. They are also operating today with diesel, so it's much easier to use them and replace them with battery-operated machines. That's no problem, because they are working today because the electricity is cut because they work on it, or it's a new line they're working on, so they are operated by diesel. But it's no problem to use them with batteries. And this is the same. You see also other machines like this. The municipalities and the governments can use their power in tender processes, and they do, to buy more sustainable solutions. And this is the last slide. This is not happening today. If I ask you how many people here in this room has driven an electric car, that's not very many. But in 5 years, maybe very many of you have, like it is in Norway. So this is a highway. This is a highway to, not to hell, but to L, electricity. And if you see what the municipality of Oslo says, if we can use and buy these machines, we will replace all of our old machines with new machines. And that's the point today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and that was a very interesting and timely presentation of some of the practical opportunities and solutions there are out there to help us move towards a net zero future, which is really what underlies the whole discussion. We have a bit of time, but not very much, and I want to focus on our ministers. I think you know, having you here is fantastic. It's a great opportunity for us to get a local perspective, which is what I want to do. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, I hope. I think it's important, if we can, to give you an opportunity as well to put a question. It's not every day you get this opportunity. So from the audience, I'm happy to take a question after I've had my go. And I will invite you to do that. So have your question in mind, please. Make sure it's a question and it's brief, and that you know who you want to answer it. Okay, well, let's move along. First of all, to Ms. Rizvanolli, Minister of the Economy. Thanks, first of all, for your presentation, and it was interesting. I've been reflecting as well on the fact that it's 2 years ago since we were here, and you know, reflecting on how things have moved on, the global situation, but also the situation here in Kosovo. And you referenced that quite a lot, and you said, you know, you've done an awful lot over the last 2 years in government. What I'd like you to tell us a little bit about is your strategic plans for the next 2 years. So if we're back here in 2 years' time, what's going to be different? What are you going to have achieved? What are your priorities for the next 2 years? Generally, but also in terms of supporting energy efficiency investments across the economy.
Thank you.
An easy question.
Yes, interesting question. I would say 2 years from now, the auction which I mentioned, the contracts for which was signed just a few weeks ago, will be in operation. By then, we will have signed the contracts for an additional at least 150 megawatts of wind in a PPP format, which is something that I also referred to earlier in my speech. The construction of batteries will have started. Construction of the other solar PV and solar thermal projects will be underway. And by that time, we should be launching a publicly site-specific wind auction or two, which we are currently preparing. In terms of energy efficiency, we will be expanding the existing schemes that we have with regard to appliances, home insulation, and also public buildings. We aim that in the next 5 years, we aim to implement energy efficiency measures in all our public buildings. In the over 100 buildings that we have implemented over the last 2 years, we have savings as high as 60 or 70% in some of these buildings, along with, of course, increase of comfort for thousands, tens of thousands of beneficiaries, including school kids, patients and staff in hospitals and many other buildings. One challenge in efficiency is going to be scaling up investment. So for this, we have several models that we have currently, but also that we are planning for the future. For centrally, for buildings owned by the central government, these will be completed through grants. For locally owned, municipal-owned buildings, this will be conducted through the evolving scheme that we have, where municipalities, whereby our Kosovo Energy Efficiency Fund implements the projects, and then the municipality pays back what they would have, the savings from the project over the next 15 years. But for the residential sector and for the SME sector, so far we have focused only on grants of up to 50% depending on the scheme. Which has had a huge impact also on raising awareness. These are pilot schemes that we conducted last year and over the last 2 years with regard to residential sector. We had subsidies of 45 to 50%. Which enabled over 2,000 households to implement efficiency measures. And 80% of these houses, of these families, actually did not have insulation. This was also a means of targeting, because in lack of a better targeting strategy, we designed it in a way that households that lived in a house for more than 2 years or more but did not have insulation had this opportunity. In the next phases, we cannot rely solely on public funding or not such high grants. Therefore, an evolving scheme which is continuing on the one hand, on the other hand, having a mixed model and more partnerships with the banking sector and microfinancial institutions, but not only will combine grants and credit to make this financially more sustainable in order to achieve, again, our 2031 ambitious energy efficiency targets.
Great. Let's move along, Mr. Aliu. I would argue that infrastructure is central, fundamental everywhere, in every country in the world. But for Kosovo, it must be a particularly critical area, alongside maybe education. There are probably few portfolios that are more important in the government. And you must want to do everything, everywhere, all at once. There's so much to be achieved. So, just in terms of the balance that you find between domestic development and international connectivity, for example, how do you prioritize? What are your priorities? Where are you focused for the next couple of years?
Well, actually, when we think and speak about connectivity and linking it to the sustainability, let me just say, for example, the port of Durrës, at the moment, 30% of the entire cargo shipment from the port of Durrës is coming to Kosovo. And this is since we have built the highway that connects Durrës to Pristina. If the connectivity projects will be finished in time as we are planning, then the entire region will use the cargo shipment transport from both ports of Bar in Montenegro and in Durrës for the entire region. And combining it with a sustainable transport as a railway one that we are now more focused in, this will actually have a direct impact on emissions. And this interesting idea about the batteries on the trains, this is also a project that immediately opens the idea of the innovation that we need for our energy transition. Kosovo is fifth largest, we have the fifth largest basin of the lignite in the world, and we will have to close it. 95% of our energy is produced by coal. And what is another issue is that we are lacking water. We cannot build our baseload sustainability energy production only with renewables without batteries. We are building a big battery, actually, and this will make possible our energy transition. But without these innovative ideas, different batteries in the cars and everywhere that will use the night production of energy to balance the peaks or use the renewable energy to put it on batteries and to use whenever we want it, actually it's not going to be that easy to achieve this green transition that as we are planning. So at first, connectivity without having in mind borders and just connecting as much as we can these lines. So if we will think what is the priority is achieving the full connectivity on highways, that will mean the new highway that is about to be built in Pristina will connect to highways and will make direct connectivity from Durrës to Bujanovce or Niš in Corridor 10 in Serbia, and then therefore is Sofia and Varna. And the same one in parallel to that, the railway connectivity. And what is the crucial on this entire network connectivity project is the railway connection between Durrës and Pristina that actually is on the end of its phase, and we are just seeing the different options, and we are lucky that after 2 years, I hope that this is going to be already on the process of
okay, well, we will check in on that in 2 years' time. We are really out of time, but I did promise you a question, so I'm going to offer that opportunity. If there's anybody in the room who has a question for our panel, now is your moment. Apparently not. I suspect that because everybody knows it's lunch next, people are suppressing their curiosity in favor of their hunger. So I think to do them all a favor, we should call it a day for this panel. We will be going to lunch now, and we'll be back after an hour or so, so keep an eye out for when we're ready to get going again. But before we do break, please join me in thanking what's been an excellent panel. Thank you very much.